James. Yeah, you're right, James. You weren't as funny as the previous speaker. A lot of what I'm talking about is already being covered, and it's not rocket science. So I'm looking at safe ways of increasing mileage. And you've got to think, the first thing is, if I can get this to work. Okay, I'll use the forward instead of the back button. I won't. There we go. So, you know, who is influencing the runner? Where are their influences? So we've got lots of influences. We've got the coaches. Is the coach encouraging them to do more mileage? Is it an essential part of their program? But what I would say is not all coaches are born equal. So, you know, is it a sensible program? Is it not a sensible program? So why are they increasing mileage? Is it necessary? World record holder. Are they doing it because they're following the world record holders program? And we get a lot of that here. There is a hidden, for Nilesh, there's a hidden year involved in this presentation. You've got to guess it by the end of it. So the world record holder. So if you look at the world record holder there in the number 1, that is Dave Bedford. When he was at his best, he was running 200 miles a week. Try and work that one out. And working. And I spoke to Ian Stewart, who was another guy that was running 200 miles a week. I said, were you really running those miles? He said, yeah. We'd do 10 miles before we went to work, 10 miles in the evening when we got back. You know, that was already, tries to do his maths, 5 times 20, that was 100 miles just in a working week. So these guys weren't professional athletes, they were working and running over 100 miles a week. So are people just getting their mileage up because everybody else is doing it? Podcasters, I see a lot of this. My wife's a big, keen runner. Podcasters are saying we're going to do this, and there we go. So there you go. I recognise Ben Parks. He's the only one of my little picture that I recognise. Magazines. Back in the day before there was podcasts and internet, people read magazines. Everybody was doing whatever Runner's World said was the best way to peak or what you needed to do for your mileage. Books, before magazines and books. There's a lot of books, you just get your standard book. You've got Greta Weitz, I think, up there, you know, mileage. You've got, hopefully, Runner's High by Dean Karnazes. He won 2 100-mile races in a year in I think it was the Western States. Or Born to Run. And we were talking before about fads and putting everybody in orthotics. I think it was a fad as well when there was everybody was going barefoot. And I'm sure that had a lot of impact on your workload. Personal trainers, this is my personal bugbear, is that people will follow a personal trainer for advice on how to prepare for a marathon or, you know, and I don't know why you do that, personally. YouTube vloggers, I've got them up there actually. That's why I had podcasters. So people are coming out and advising you. You've got to think, what is motivating the people that do this? What is the motivation of the coach? Probably the most intrinsically honest, I would say. Why are you copying the world record holder? Podcasters, what's their experience? Why are they? They want people to listen to their podcast. Magazines are selling magazines. Authors are selling books. Personal trainers are trying to keep control and make a bit more money. And bloggers are trying to get hits as well. So we've got your peers. What is your running group saying? Again, I think somebody alluded to this before. One of the previous speakers was saying, yeah, you don't want those shoes, you want these shoes, they're better. It's the same with this. You're not doing enough mileage. You've got to get your mileage up. There's race organisers' plans. And I'm always skeptical of these because I think they're genuinely just trying to get you to the start line, because that's the headline. 40,000 people did the city marathon, and I'm not sure they necessarily want to get you to the end. That's good for them, but it's the start line numbers that get publicised. Your watch, how many clients are driven by their Sunto, Garmin, Apple, Whoop, bit of technology, rather than listening to them. So my big question is, which I've obviously lost a bit here because of my bad editing, is it necessary to increase your mileage at all? You know, for the race, for your intended race, are you already getting enough mileage? So I think you've got to ask that question as well. Why are you upping your mileage? And if it's, you've got to be careful about why, you know, who is influencing the athlete to, or runner, recreational runner, to increase their mileage. And most of what I'm talking about is recreation runners. So I think the elite have a big support network. You know, our elite runners, we've got physios that they see every day. So it's a big difference than the previous but one speaker who was talking about, you know, they would come in the last 2 weeks just before they're going or heading off to Tokyo for the Tokyo Marathon. Oh, I've gone back. Do they intend to do a race at all? If they're running for health, you've got plenty of time. You've got a good way of easing up the mileage. You know, what is the optimum mileage for health? And it's probably less of an influence going from 50 kilometers a week to 60 kilometers a week as it is going from no kilometers a week to 10 kilometers a week, being in the no kilometer mileage category. Oh, doing it again. So how do you do it safely? Touching a bit on what James says, make sure your running is efficient and your technique is sound. And that's where a lot of you come in. It would be really good if people came to you before they started doing their mileage rather than afterwards when you've got injured. So it's almost like a selling of, you know, getting your car serviced before it goes wrong rather than waiting for it to go wrong before you go and get it sorted out. We've got, I think a lot of us, when we're running, we all think we look like Paco Vasala or, you know, and Kip Keino in, you know, at the Olympic final there, but most athletes do not run like this. The thing is to increase gradually. And what I mean by waves is you don't just linearly increase it, you go up, bring it back down, go up, bring it back down. Oh, Mr. Incompetent. You've also got to take account of what else is happening in people's lives. There are, you know, you can't just go out and do your 10 miles in the morning before you go to work and 10 miles in the evening when you come back. There are other stresses. Are you trying to get the mileage in while you're preparing to get married, or you've got a baby on the way, or there's a festival coming up, or, you know, there's a big project at work. So you've got to be clear with how your clients' mileage fits in with their lifestyle. Even before we get to nutrition and sleep patterns and everything like that. So, you know, look at, is it realistic do they have enough time? Do they have enough time to increase their mileage? How are they monitoring their recovery? There's a saying, there's no such thing as overtraining, there's insufficient recovery. So if you are giving your clients guidance on their increasing their mileage safely, then they really need to be looking at monitoring their recovery. Now, how they do that, I think we looked at objective and subjective things before. Again, a mixture of both. You can get a bit insane with the with the Whoop and the watches. I know Dean Canazes said that after he'd won his second 100-mile race, his watch was telling him he needed to take 2 years off to recover. So be careful how that goes. And this is, I think, a part of the big problem is we don't give enough time for the mileage increase. I had a guy come to me before the London Marathon. London Marathon's in April. He came to me in February and said, can you get me to finish? I said, well, what's your longest run at the moment? He said, 2 miles. And I said, I think it's going to be hard. It's a challenge. And of course, he just dropped out. So you've got to look at the motivation. So it's always start last week or start last month is probably the best time to start increasing your mileage. And you've got to plan it. You can't just go and do more mileage. You've got to plan, and then you've got to do it, and then you've got to review it. And that's really important, that you review how it's going. And, again, we were saying that things have become really important 2 weeks out from the race are less important, little injuries, little niggles. So it's monitoring what you're doing and how the increase in mileage is going, and make it slow and steady progress. Ooh. This is a paper I just came across actually just 2 days ago, and it's from Aarhus University in Denmark. And they were saying that the biggest influence on injury was not increasing your mileage, which I'd always believed, not changing your running surface, not in changing the intensity. It was if your longest run was 10% more, was over 10% more than your previous long run. So that's for your reference there. How much running is too much? Identify high risk sessions from Jesper Schuster, Brandt Fransen. But that really challenges a lot of our certainly my preconceptions about the truisms of injury prevention. And it also changes something I used very successfully, which was the Jeff Galloway training system that he initially started using, where you kept everything the same during the week, and all you did was increase your long run, and it got you closer and closer. Now, as James said to me before, he goes, you believe in mileage? Yeah, I believe in mileage. I think it's important. I think if you're going to run a marathon, you need to have run a marathon. We talk a lot about not changing things on race day. And if one of the major things you're changing in race day is you're going to run 26 miles and you've never run more than 20 miles, that's a big, big change on race day. So I think you need to learn how your body's going to react. Ooh. So things I would have liked to talk to a little bit more, but I haven't, is regulating temperature. So hopefully somebody will talk that. I think some of the mileage in India is affected by humidity. I think there's a lot of humidity factors that you're not fueling. I see a lot of my guys are not fueling properly, and they're not hydrating properly. And shoes, there's more experts in the room on shoes than me. But I do think there's an obsession with the latest fashion and trend. Sports watches, I think we drive too much of our behavior through sports watches. Ice massage, cryotherapy and rolling. I don't think we spend enough time educating our athletes on how to use them well. So thank you.